The fluorescent lights of the convenience store flickered above me as I wiped down the counter for the third time that hour. It was 11:47 p.m., and the only sound was the hum of the refrigerators and the occasional car passing by outside. I'm Juan Gil, just another 26-year-old trying to survive in Seoul with 2 part-time jobs and a studio apartment the size of a closet. I should have known something was wrong when the black sedan pulled up outside. 2 men in expensive suits walked in, their shoes clicking against the linoleum floor with purpose. They didn't browse the aisles or grab a drink. They walked straight to the counter, their eyes locked on me like predators who'd found their prey. "Are you Park Juan Gil?" the taller one asked, his voice flat and professional. My hands froze on the cleaning cloth. "Who's asking?" "Someone who doesn't like to be kept waiting. Come with us." "I'm working." The second man placed a briefcase on the counter between us, popping it open to reveal stacks of documents with my father's name printed across the top. My father. The man who'd been dead for 3 months. The man who'd left me with nothing but unpaid rent and unanswered questions. "Your father owed a significant debt to our employer," the tall man said. "That debt is now yours." My stomach dropped. "That's not how debt works. You can't just. You can explain that to Mr. Calm yourself. Let's go." They didn't give me a choice. One of them spoke to my manager while the other guided me, or rather, forced me, into the back of their sedan. The leather seats were cold against my legs, and the city lights blurred past the tinted windows as we drove deeper into Gangnam, where the buildings scraped the sky and every storefront screamed wealth I'd never know. We stopped at Obsidian Tower, a sleek black skyscraper that looked like it could swallow the moon. The lobby was empty except for a single security guard who nodded at my escorts like this was routine. The elevator ride to the top floor felt like descending into hell, my heart hammering against my ribs with each passing floor. The penthouse office was exactly what I expected. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Seoul, minimalist furniture that probably cost more than my yearly salary, and at the center of it all him, Kang Mil. I'd seen his face in business magazines, always accompanied by words like ruthless, visionary, and untouchable. But seeing him in person was different. He sat behind a massive desk made of dark wood and glass, his black suit perfectly tailored, his hair slicked back to reveal a face that was almost beautiful in its cruelty. He couldn't have been older than 32, but his eyes held the weight of someone who'd seen and done terrible things. Those eyes fixed on me, and I felt like an insect under a magnifying glass. "Park Hwan Gil," he said, his voice smooth like expensive whiskey. "Sit." It wasn't a request. I sat in the chair across from him, my hands trembling slightly. I hid them in my lap. "Your father," Muyol began, sliding a folder across the desk toward me, "borrowed 500 million won from me 2 years ago. He promised to repay it with interest. He didn't. 500 million won. My vision swam. That was impossible. My father had been a gambling addict, sure, but this was enough to destroy 10 families. "I don't have that kind of money," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I can barely afford rent. You must know that." "I do know that." Muyol leaned back in his chair, his fingers steepled under his chin. "Which is why I'm offering you an alternative arrangement." He slid a contract across the desk. The words blurred together as I tried to read them. Something about employment, residence, non-disclosure. "Work for me," Muyol said, his tone almost casual. "Live in my penthouse. Follow my rules. Do this for 1 year, and your father's debt disappears completely. You'll walk away free." I looked up at him, searching for the catch. There was always a catch. "What kind of work?" "Nothing you need to worry about right now. Household management. Personal assistance. Whatever I require." The way he said, "whatever I require," sent ice down my spine. This man could require anything. He could destroy me with a phone call, make me disappear, and no one would ever know. "And if I refuse?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. Muyol's lips curved into something that might have been a smile on anyone else, but on him looked like a threat. He leaned forward, his elbows on the desk, his eyes boring into mine with an intensity that made it hard to breathe. "Then I'll make sure you lose everything you have left," he said softly. "Your jobs. Your apartment. Any chance of employment in this city. I'll make certain that every door closes in your face until you have nowhere left to go. Do you understand? The clock on the wall ticked. Twice. 3 times. You have 10 seconds to decide, Juan Gil. My hands were shaking openly now. This wasn't a choice. This was a trap dressed up as an opportunity, and we both knew it. But what could I do? Refuse and watch my life crumble? At least this way I'd survive. At least this way, there was an end date. I reached for the pen he'd placed beside the contract. Smart choice, Muyol murmured as I signed my name on the line, each stroke feeling like I was signing away a piece of my soul. As his men escorted me toward the private elevator that would take me to his penthouse, I glanced back one last time. Muyol was watching me leave, his expression unreadable. But then I saw it, on the corner of his desk, partially hidden by a lamp. A photograph. It was me. Younger, maybe 5 years ago, standing outside a cafe I used to frequent. I was smiling at something off camera, completely unaware I was being photographed. The elevator doors closed before I could process what that meant, but one thought echoed in my mind as we ascended. This was never about the debt at all. The penthouse was a masterpiece of cold luxury, all marble floors, modern art I didn't understand, and windows that made me feel like I was floating above the city. My room was larger than my entire apartment had been, complete with a king-sized bed, a walk-in closet filled with clothes in exactly my size, and a bathroom with a shower that had more buttons than my phone. Everything was perfect. Everything was suffocating. I'd been here for 2 weeks, and I still felt like an intruder in a museum exhibit labeled, "How the Other Half Lives." The morning routine never changed. I woke at 6:30 a.m. to the alarm on the phone Muyol's assistant had given me. My old phone had been replaced without my permission. I'd shower, dress in the clothes that had been laid out for me, always simple, always expensive, and make my way to the kitchen by 7 a.m. sharp. That's when he would appear. Kang Muyol emerged from his bedroom at exactly 7:05 a.m. every morning, wearing a different perfectly tailored suit, his hair still damp from his shower. He never said good morning. He would simply sit at the breakfast bar, open his tablet, and wait while I made his coffee, 3 shots of espresso, no sugar, a splash of milk heated to exactly 65 degrees Celsius. And he would watch me. Not the tablet. Not the morning news playing on the television mounted to the wall. Those dark eyes followed every movement. The way I ground the beans, how I tilted the milk pitcher, the slight tremor in my hands as I placed the cup in front of him. It was unnerving, like being studied by a scientist observing a particularly interesting specimen. "You're getting better at this," he said on my 15th morning, taking a sip. "The temperature is perfect now." "Thank you," I muttered, turning away to clean the espresso machine. "Look at me when I'm speaking to you, Juan Gil." I froze, my grip tightening on the cleaning cloth. Slowly, I turned around. He was still watching me with that same intense focus, his head slightly tilted. "Better," he said softly. "You have until noon to run errands. The driver will take you wherever you need to go. Be back by 12:30. I have a conference call at 1, and I want you here." "Why do you need me here for your conference call?" Something flickered in his eyes. Amusement, maybe, or something darker. "Because I want you here. That's reason enough." He left for his office at 7:30, and I was alone again in the golden cage. The one rule came on my 8th day. I decided to take a walk, to breathe air that didn't smell like expensive cologne and leather furniture. I made it to the elevator, pressed the button for the ground floor, and waited. The elevator never came. Instead, 2 security guards appeared from a door I hadn't noticed before. "Mr. Park," the older one said, his voice apologetic but firm. "Mr. Kong has requested that you remain in the penthouse unless accompanied by approved personnel." "I'm just going for a walk." "I understand, but those are Mr. Kang's instructions. If you need anything, we can have it brought to you." I went back inside, my hands balled into fists, my jaw clenched so tight it ached. When Muyol came home that evening, later than usual, smelling of cigarette smoke and something metallic I didn't want to identify, I was waiting in the living room. "I tried to leave today," I said without preamble. "Your guard stopped me." He loosened his tie, his expression unbothered. "Yes, I know. They reported it to me immediately." "You can't keep me prisoner here." I'm not keeping you prisoner. I'm keeping you safe. Safe from what? He didn't answer. Instead, he walked to the bar cart, poured himself 2 fingers of whiskey, and gestured for me to follow him to his study. It was the one room I hadn't been allowed to enter, a dark space lined with bookshelves, a massive desk, and a leather chair that looked like a throne. Sit, he commanded, pointing to the chair across from his desk. I'd rather stand. Sit, Juan Gil. There was something in his voice, not anger, but something colder and more absolute. I sat. For 3 hours we stayed like that. He worked on his laptop, occasionally taking sips of his whiskey, while I sat in increasingly uncomfortable silence. I tried to leave twice. Both times, he simply looked up at me, and I found myself sitting back down without him saying a word. The clock on the wall ticked. The ice in his glass melted. My legs went numb. Finally, at midnight, he closed his laptop and looked at me directly. You need to understand something, Juan Gil, he said, his voice soft but carrying the weight of a judge delivering a sentence. You're mine now. Not because of the debt. That was just convenient. You're mine because I've decided it. And I don't let go of things that belong to me. My mouth went dry. I'm not a thing. No, he agreed, standing up and walking around the desk to stand in front of me. He was close enough that I could smell his cologne mixed with whiskey. You're much more valuable than a thing. Which is exactly why you don't leave without my permission. Do we understand each other? I should have been terrified. I should have screamed, fought, demanded to leave. But something in his eyes stopped me. Beneath the cold authority, beneath the possessive intensity, there was something else. Something that looked almost like desperation. Like he was the one trapped, and I was the only thing keeping him from drowning. Yes, I whispered. We understand each other. He nodded, seemingly satisfied, and left me alone in his study. I sat there for another hour, my mind racing, before finally returning to my room. Sleep didn't come easily. When it did, I dreamed of cages made of gold and eyes that watched me even in darkness. It was 3 days later, while searching for extra towels in the hallway closet, that I found it. A hidden drawer behind the linens, filled with photographs. All of them were of me. Me at the cafe where I used to work. Me walking home in the rain. Me at the library, studying for an exam I barely remembered taking. Dozens of them, spanning years, all taken from a distance. He'd been watching me long before my father died. Long before the debt became his excuse. My hands shook as I closed the drawer, my heart pounding so loud I was certain he could hear it from wherever he was in the penthouse. What had I gotten myself into? And more terrifying, why did part of me want to know why? I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those photographs, dozens of frozen moments of my life that I'd lived unknowingly under his surveillance. The casual coffee runs, the late night walks, the mundane existence of someone who thought they were invisible in a city of 10 million people. But I hadn't been invisible to him. By morning, my fear had crystallized into anger. When Muyol emerged from his bedroom at 7:05 a.m., expecting his perfect routine, I was waiting at the breakfast bar with the drawer of photographs spread across the marble counter like evidence at a crime scene. He stopped mid-step, his expression flickering, surprise, then something unreadable. Explain this, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Explain why you have years' worth of photographs of me. Explain why you've been stalking me like some kind of... I wasn't stalking you, he interrupted quietly. I was looking for you. That's the same thing. No. He walked closer, his eyes fixed on the photographs rather than on me. It's not. He picked up one of the photos, me outside a small cafe in Hongdae, laughing at something off camera. His thumb traced the edge almost reverently, and when he looked up at me, his mask had cracked. For the first time since I'd met him, Kang Muyol looked human. Vulnerable even. 5 years ago, he began, his voice softer than I'd ever heard it, I stood on the Mapo Bridge at 2 a.m, ready to jump. My anger faltered. What? I'd just lost everything. My father had cut me off, my business partners had betrayed me, and I'd driven away everyone who'd ever cared about me. I was 27 years old, and I had nothing left to live for. He set the photo down carefully. And then you appeared. My mind raced backward, searching through alcohol-hazed memories from 5 years ago. I'd been working 3 jobs back then, drinking too much to cope with my own father's gambling debts. There were entire weeks I barely remembered. You were drunk, Muyol continued, a ghost of a smile touching his lips. Stumbling along the bridge, singing some song I didn't recognize. You saw me standing on the railing and you just started talking. You climbed up next to me, which was incredibly stupid, by the way, and you talked for hours. Fragments came back to me. A cold night. A stranger in an expensive coat. The way the Han River looked like spilled ink below us. You told me that life was worth living, he said, his voice cracking slightly. That somewhere out there, someone needed me. That even if I couldn't see it now, there was a reason I was still breathing. You made me laugh. I don't even remember what you said, but I laughed for the first time in months. And when the sun started rising, you gave me your name. Park Hwan-gil. You made me promise I'd be there to see the next sunrise. My throat tightened. I remembered now, vaguely, like a dream half forgotten. A man who'd seemed so sad, so utterly broken. I'd been too drunk to remember his face, but I remembered wanting to help him. Needing to help him. I climbed down from that bridge because of you, Muyol said. I went home, and I rebuilt everything. I created Obsidian Corp from nothing, became the man everyone feared, accumulated more wealth than I knew what to do with. And through it all, I searched for you. He pulled out his phone, swiping through what looked like private investigator reports, surveillance footage, financial records. You were too drunk to remember giving me your number. You disappeared into the crowd the next morning. All I had was your name and a blurry memory of your face. His jaw tightened. Do you know how many Park Hwan-gils there are in Seoul? Hundreds. I spent 5 years tracking down every single one. 5 years of dead ends and false leads and photographs that weren't quite right. He stepped closer, close enough that I had to tilt my head up to meet his eyes. And then, 6 months ago, I finally found you. I hired investigators to confirm it was really you. The right age, the right neighborhood, the same smile I remembered from that night. And I knew I couldn't let you disappear again. So you used my father's debt? I whispered, the pieces falling into place. You manufactured this whole situation to trap me here. Yes. He didn't even try to deny it. Your father did owe money to several loan sharks. I bought all his debts, consolidated them, and inflated the numbers. He never actually borrowed from me, but he owed enough that no one would question it. When he died, I saw my opportunity. I should have been horrified. I should have run screaming. But all I could think about was that night 5 years ago, the desperate stranger I'd tried to save, and how that stranger had become this. A man so obsessed with finding me that he'd built an empire just to have the resources to do it. You're insane, I said, but there was no heat in it. I know. He reached out slowly, giving me time to pull away, and cupped my face with one hand. His palm was warm, his touch surprisingly gentle. I know I'm a monster. I know this is wrong. But I spent 5 years searching for the one person who made me want to live, and now that I have you here, I can't let you go, Hwan-gil. I won't. His confession hung in the air between us, heavy and suffocating and strangely intoxicating. This wasn't love. It was obsession, possession, something dark and twisted that had no business existing in the real world. But it was real. He was real. And the way he looked at me, like I was the only thing keeping him tethered to earth, that was real too. This can't work, I said weakly. You can't just keep me here forever. I know. His thumb brushed across my cheekbone. Which is why I need you to choose to stay. Not because of the debt, not because I'm forcing you, but because you want to. Even if it takes years, I'll wait until... The penthouse phone rang, shrill and urgent. Muyol's expression shifted instantly, the vulnerability vanishing behind his usual mask of cold control. He answered it, listened for 10 seconds, and his entire body went rigid. When? He asked sharply. How many? He hung up and turned to me, and for the first time since I'd met him, I saw real fear in his eyes. We need to go. Now. What's happening? My enemies know about you, he said, already pulling me toward the door. And they're coming. We made it to the elevator before everything went dark. The backup generators kicked in, bathing the penthouse in emergency red lighting. Muel's hand tightened around my wrist as he pulled me away from the elevator. "The stairs," he said, his voice clipped and controlled, but I could feel the tension radiating from him. "They've cut the main power. They'll be coming up." Who's coming?" "JH Industries. My competitor." He pushed open the stairwell door, checking both directions before pulling me inside. "I destroyed their acquisition deal last month. Cost them billions. They've been looking for leverage ever since." We made it down 3 flights before we heard the footsteps echoing up from below. Heavy boots, multiple sets, moving with military precision. Muel cursed under his breath and reversed direction, pulling me back up. His mind was clearly racing, calculating odds and options. For a man who controlled everything, he suddenly looked like someone watching his empire crumble. "There's a service elevator on the 42nd floor," he said. "If we can reach it." We never made it. They were waiting on the landing above us. 5 men in black tactical gear, their faces covered. The leader held up a hand, and suddenly there was a gun pointed at Muel's head. "Mr. Kong," the leader said, his voice distorted through a voice modulator. "You've been a difficult man to corner. But everyone has a weakness. We just had to find yours." Before I could process what was happening, 2 men grabbed me, wrenching me away from Muel. I struggled, but they were professionals. My arms were zip-tied behind my back in seconds. "Let him go," Muel said, his voice deadly calm despite the gun pointed at his face. "Your fight is with me, not him." "Oh, but he's exactly what this is about." The leader grabbed my chin, forcing me to look at him. "We've been watching you, Mr. Kong. Noticed how you changed your entire routine 2 weeks ago. How you suddenly stopped attending evening meetings. How you installed military-grade security around your penthouse." He laughed. "You're predictable when you're obsessed." So we asked ourselves, who is Park Hwan-gil, and why does the untouchable Kong Muel suddenly have a weakness? They dragged us both out of the building through the service entrance, threw us into a van, and drove us to an abandoned warehouse in Incheon. The kind of place where people disappeared and were never found. The warehouse was cold and smelled of rust and old machinery. They zip-tied Muel to a metal chair in the center of the space and forced me to my knees a few feet away, a gun pressed against the back of my head. The leader removed his mask, revealing a man in his 50s with cold, calculating eyes. "You have something I want, Mr. Kong. The Busan port contracts. Sign them over to JH Industries, and we'll let your little pet go." "Those contracts are worth 15 billion won, Muel said flatly. "You're insane if you think." The man nodded, and someone hit me across the face. Pain exploded through my jaw, and I tasted blood. "Stop!" Muel's voice cracked, the cold control finally shattering. He strained against his restraints, the plastic cutting into his wrists. "Stop. I'll sign. I'll sign whatever you want, just don't touch him." I looked up at him through my swimming vision, and what I saw broke something inside me. The TYRANT, the man who'd built an empire through ruthlessness and fear, was falling apart. His eyes were wild, desperate, fixed on me like I was the only thing in the world that mattered. You don't," I started, but another blow cut me off. "I said don't touch him." Muel was shouting now, all pretense of control gone. "Bring me the contracts. Bring me whatever you want. Take the company, take everything I own, just let him go. Please." I'd never heard him say please before. I'd never heard his voice break like that, raw and desperate and utterly human. The leader smiled. "How touching. But here's the thing, Mr. Kong, I don't trust you not to retaliate. So I think we'll just take the contracts and eliminate both of you. Cleaner that way." He raised his gun, pointing it at Muel's head. Something inside me snapped. I threw myself backward, slamming my head into the stomach of the man guarding me. He stumbled and his gun went off, the bullet hitting the concrete floor. In the chaos, I rolled toward a piece of broken machinery, using the sharp metal edge to saw through my zip ties. "Hwan-gil!" Muel shouted. The ties snapped. I grabbed the fallen gun, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold it, and fired twice, once hitting the overhead lights, plunging us into near darkness, and once toward the leader. In the chaos and darkness, Muel somehow broke free from his restraints. Later, I'd see the deep cuts in his wrists where he'd dislocated his own thumbs to slip the zip ties. He moved like something feral, taking down two men before they could react. We fought our way out together, messy, desperate, nothing like the action movies made it look. I'd never fired a gun before. My hands were shaking so badly I nearly shot Muyol twice. But somehow we made it to the warehouse exit. We ran into the night, into the industrial maze of Incheon's warehouse district, until we couldn't hear pursuit anymore. We collapsed in an alley between two buildings, both of us covered in blood, some ours, some not. For a long moment, we just sat there, breathing hard, alive. Then Muyol pulled me to him, his hands shaking as they cupped my face. His thumbs were at wrong angles, dislocated, but he didn't seem to care. "You saved me," he whispered, his voice hoarse. "You saved me again." I looked at this man, this twisted, obsessive, broken man who'd built an empire just to find me, who'd been ready to give up everything to keep me safe. And I realized something terrifying. I'd fallen for him. Not despite his obsession, but perhaps because of it. Because beneath the monster everyone feared was someone who needed me so desperately that he'd burn the world down to keep me. Because I'd spent my whole life invisible, and he'd spent 5 years searching for me in a city of millions. "I know you're a monster," I said, my voice cracking. "I know." His forehead pressed against mine. "I know I'm a monster. But I can't let you go, Hwang-gil. I can't." I kissed him. It was nothing like the movies. We were both covered in blood and dirt, my lip was split, his thumbs were dislocated, and we tasted like fear and adrenaline. But it was real. More real than anything I'd ever felt. When we broke apart, I said, "Then don't. Don't let me go. But if I'm staying, we do this my way, as equals, not as your prisoner. No more surveillance, no more control. You want me in your life? Then let me actually be in it, not just trapped in it." For the first time since I'd met him, Kang Muyol smiled. A real, genuine smile that transformed his entire face. "Deal," he whispered. We made it back to the penthouse as the sun was rising. The same sun he'd promised to see 5 years ago because a drunk stranger told him life was worth living. Muyol's people handled the aftermath. JH Industries' leadership was arrested within 48 hours, charged with kidnapping and attempted murder. How he managed it, I didn't ask. There were parts of his world I wasn't ready to see yet. I helped him reset his dislocated thumbs in the bathroom, both of us wincing through the pain. Then we collapsed on his bed, together this time, not separated by walls and doors and the pretense of captor and captive. As I started to drift off, I noticed something on his nightstand, a new file folder labeled Project Hwang-gil, Phase 2. "Mul," I said sleepily. "What's that?" He pulled me closer, his breath warm against my neck. "Nothing you need to worry about right now. Just plans for our future." I should have pressed. I should have demanded to know what else he had planned. But I was too tired and he was too warm, and for the first time in weeks, I felt